You're listening to the Future of Convenience podcast, brought to you by Global Convenience Store Focus, featuring senior retail executives and experts in the global convenience, fuels, and mobility retail industry. Welcome to the Future of Convenience. I'm happy to be alongside my co-host, Nick Scherzer, who I haven't seen in quite some time. Hey, Nick.
Hey, Carolyn. Good to be back with you.
You too. Welcome back. We're going to talk about the customer journey and how smooth operations, technology, and more can help expand that experience.
Are you looking for a loyalty platform that drives real results? Liquid Barcodes is the leading loyalty and subscription platform for convenience retailers worldwide. From global brands like Circle K and 7-Eleven to innovators like Rebel Stores and H&S Energy, great convenience operators trust Liquid Barcodes to keep their customers coming back. Liquid Barcodes delivers the complete loyalty solution, making it easy to operate targeted and gamified loyalty programs with a fantastic user experience. With features like subscriptions, games, and advanced analytics, Liquid Barcodes helps operate a loyalty program and helps grow the business too. Learn more at liquidbarcodes.com.
So, Nick, we have two guests today, and we're going to talk about customer journey. So I'm pretty excited to jump right in, and I'm going to start by briefly introducing each, and then we'll jump in our conversation. So first, we have someone I've gotten to know over many years, and who is the current reigning NACS European Convenience Leader of 2024, Brian Donaldson, the CEO of Maxol in Ireland. Hey, Brian.
Hi, Caroline. It's great to catch up with you today from a very dull Dublin.
Oh, never dull in Dublin. Maybe a little cloudy, but every time I've been there, it's sunshine.
No, looking forward to the conversation.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining us. Next, we have Brad Sandys, Head of Business Development for Urgent, a tech niche product. Hey, Brad.
Hey, good to see you, Carolyn. Thanks for letting me join the call today. I've got to say, it's going to be vulnerable for a moment. It's my first podcast. So, yeah, looking forward to this conversation.
Well, welcome to the podcast world.
Brad, welcome. And Brian, good to see you as well.
Yeah, Nick, yeah, absolutely.
And Brian and Brad, you two have met briefly before at a number of industry events over the years, haven't you?
Oh, well, yeah, I met the reigning champ for NACS at Barcelona last year on a lovely, warm Barcelona rooftop. Not quite the same as dreary Milton Keynes in Dublin at the moment, but yeah, it was good to meet Brian back then.
And Brian, just picking up on the point in Carolyn's introduction, last year you were recognized as the NACS Convenience Industry Leader of the Year for Europe. And I think, that's a remarkable achievement and really well-deserved. And I think that award recognizes both the leadership you've shown in the Maxol group over many years, but equally important, the leadership you've shown within our industry over many, many years. And you and I have known each other for well over a decade now. And I think it's one of the unique things to our industry is this global community of retailers and suppliers coming together at the events that we referenced here. And I think the openness that our industry shows to each other from different retailers really helps to drive the industry standards forward. And you've contributed massively to this over the years. And I just wanted to get your thoughts, and congratulations on that recognition, but get your thoughts on why you give so much to the industry and equally what you get back from that contribution.
Yeah, look, I think the first thing I kind of have to say, look, the award is accepted on behalf of all our people within the Maxol group. We're a fourth generation, family owned, privately owned business. And we've been on a journey for 105 years, and probably change in the last 10 years has been much more phenomenal than even the previous 20 years. Just with technology and the speed of change, and how consumers today are just so well informed because of that simple thing you have in your pocket, the mobile phone. So technology has been a real game changer. But look, in terms of the recognition, it's the recognition in terms of everybody in the organization, be them with us or those who are sadly departed or those who have played a big part in our organization over the last number of years. But to go back to the value of relationships and actually meeting your peers, I think is absolutely critical, and it's fundamental to developing your own style and your own business. I can recall when we first met way back in 2011, and I said to our owners, I was heading off to Vegas, and they said, "You must be joking. Why would you want to go to Vegas?" And I said, "There is an organization called NACS, National Association of Convenience Stores, and it's the biggest show in the world.
Yeah.
And I'm told if we are really serious about retail, if we're really serious about how we're going to transition from being a very fuel-centric business, because that's what we were. We were your traditional petroleum-based roadside retailer. So how do we transition to be seen to be a convenience-led retailer with fuels becoming much more secondary? Albeit they're still very important to our overall profitability, but how do you change your perception to your changing consumer base? And, when you get the opportunity to network with some of the best people in the world within your industry who are trading in different countries with different fiscal policies, different government approaches to business, it's amazing that a lot of the challenges that we face in Ireland are very similar to what others face in many different parts of the world. But how people address it and how people look at turning a challenge into a real opportunity, that's where you can really learn. And that's the value in terms of networking. And every day we learn. Anyone who says that they don't continue to learn after leaving school or university is wrong. Every day we learn, every day we progress, and every day we have the opportunity to becoming better at what we do. And one of the best things I've ever attended, which sort of changed my style of leadership, was attending Cornell University under the next leadership course. I have to say that was a game changer, not just for me, but also for our CFO, Lawrence Donoghue. Whenever we were able to get into a room of people from different backgrounds, people who had worked their way through businesses within roadside retailing, or those who had come in from new sectors, who were just trying to look at new ways of leadership. And servant leadership was something that I wasn't really aware of. I didn't really fully understand what servant leadership was all about. And it's about serving your people rather than them serving you, and making sure that they have the right resources, the right technology, and the right supports so that they can really do the hard yards, the heavy lifting. So relationships and working with people and being able to engage with people and to also share your own insights in a very open and friendly and respectful way is critical to all of our progressions. And certainly that's one of our core values, to always be open, to be honorable, to be friendly in our style in terms of engaging. And also we want to be successful. We have champion in our values, but ultimately family is one of our core values. We treat people as people, treat people as you'd like to be treated yourself. And, that falls back to how we engage on the global stage. And I have to say, I've made some tremendous friends all over the world. And, they'll be with me for as long as I'm on this world. So yeah, it's a super opportunity and a super industry in which people really do want to work together. And I think that's particularly special.
Yeah. Brian, I agree with you. And I think that's an amazing reflection on the value of the global community within our industry. And and I think, for myself personally, just thinking back, and I kind of joined Insight in the whole NACS and this industry community in around 2010. So kind of where you were talking back to as well. And it's been a real privilege to see over the years the industry advance, and it's always fun as well, referencing the NAC show, going to the US and seeing where that market was going back 15 plus years ago, and then watching how Europe advanced in different markets. And, the Irish one really stands out as a market that has progressed so dramatically. It was always, a strong market, but the advancements and the developments in the Irish market have been phenomenal. And I know you know your competitors very well, but it's kind of that environment that encourages everybody to improve and progress, and one leapfrogs the other, and we all move forward together. And Brad, bringing you in on this point, you and I met probably about 3 years ago or something. We were doing a road trip through Norway with a group of retailers,
Yeah,
and I
very much so. Going to Kristiansand and Sandefjord, very nice.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, that trip stands out to me just because it was such a wonderful group of people, and getting to travel kind of, I think, somewhere around 500 kilometers across Norway, looking at convenience and electric vehicle sites. Just wondered your reflections on the years you spent in this industry as well, in terms of the value of coming together with retailers and suppliers and learning from each other.
It's clear to me it's a tight industry. It's small, people know each other, and those relationships kind of stand the test of time. So I worked in coffee solutions, selling into the forecourt industry, and I knew I enjoyed the people I was selling into. So I wanted to make the transition to stay in the industry because I knew those relationships I'd fostered before would stay with me. So I really value that. And Brian said something I often say is treat people how you want to be treated, because you're going to cross those people again. So you want to leave a good impression, because hopefully if you're not doing business with them now, you'll probably be doing business with them in the future if you act in the right way.
Yeah, that's such a great point. And, and I think picking up on that point around people and relationships, and Brian, you referenced it, and moving kind of onto the customer experience point of view, I always kind of think of customer experience as an outcome, and it's the outcome of the collective efforts of so many people within the team, within an organization, working across so many functions. And when all of those people work together and have a single vision of what you're trying to achieve, that ultimately kind of determines what the customer experience is, and therefore the customer experience within your stores. Brian, how have you managed that? And I think, what are you seeing in terms of what customers are looking for in 2025? And
yeah. Look, in terms of our business, we don't directly manage any of our company-owned sites. We work with independent retailers who are like-minded, like ourselves, in terms of wanting to deliver the right experience. And that experience has changed in line with consumer expectations. Our model is working with the best in terms of independent retailers. And these are individuals who are typically from the local community, so they know their customers well. They typically obviously employ from the local catchment, and they understand their customers. So our model is very much based on people who know their customers, who know their staff, to close that people-centric approach to business. And in my time in this industry, and I've been here for almost 4 decades now, I've seen a dramatic change in terms of consumer expectations. And even today in our town hall, we had the MD of Bewley's Coffee, who roasts all of our coffee beans. And we were talking about, this coffee inflation because harvests are down because of climate change, and the cost of a pound of beans today is almost double what it would have been a year ago. So, there's lots of inflation coming through. But is price of that coffee important? And whenever you ask your customers what's really important to them, the first thing that they will say to you is the quality of my coffee. Quality is where people will almost plan their route planner. They'll know where they can get a quality cup of coffee. And then the second thing, which is so important, is the experience, the environment in which I'm coming in to get my coffee. But more so, it's about, am I recognized? Am I being greeted? Do people appreciate my business? So it's quality first and foremost. That is very much the experience. So it's that customer reaction, but also the environment in terms that you're bringing people into. We've spent an awful lot of money in terms of refurbishing, upgrading, and creating very modern, well-lit, well-designed environments that people feel comfortable in. they feel safe, and they also want to keep coming back. So it's quality, it's experience, and then you get into the price point. So value probably a little bit more in terms of the third component when you're looking at coffee and tea. Like tea is still a big part of our sales as well in terms of people on the go. My coffee is obviously the number one staple. And depending on your demographic, then you'll either see people wanting to have iced coffee, or they'll want to have oat milk coffee if they've got allergens, and all of this kind of approach to what's important to them today. But outside of, in terms of, the coffee business or food service business, and that's what Ireland really has built a very, very strong reputation for right across Europe and indeed right across the globe. And consumers really want quality ingredients. They don't want an ingredient in there which is a poor quality. The kind of hams that we buy, that we put into our delis, are all locally produced, all locally sourced, and they're the higher end in terms of the quality. It's the same as our bread products. It's the same as the salad products. It's the same as the fish products. People are very focused in terms, more so today than what they were even 10 years ago, what they put into their body. They want to make sure that there's provenance. They want traceability. And what we have found, and probably, Ireland, because it's such a large farming community and so many of our products are locally produced and sourced, people are very much fixated in making sure that the products that they're buying are those which are from the local community, or certainly from the local market. So provenance is very, very important. But also, I think one of the other things that we're seeing is changing, and this is perhaps no surprise. There's a lot of geopolitical uncertainty in the world at this moment in time. We've come through a pandemic, then we have had Ukraine, and we've had the energy inflation. Now we have the tariff war. So it's, if it's not one thing, it's something else that's really changing.
I was about to say that exact phrase. If it's not one thing, it's the next thing. Because the way you describe that, it certainly has been a number of things over the years.
It's been extremely tough, and people's habits have changed. Like, one of the good things that came out of the pandemic is it was a massive advertisement for roadside retail and convenience. People could shop local, they could shop often, they felt more secure. They built up a tremendous affinity and relationship with those independent retailers from within our sector. But habits are already starting to change again. And some of this is on the back of inflation. Household disposable incomes are back to being positive again. But consumers are much more fickle than they ever were in the last 4 to 5 years. Because there is this concern in terms of what's the next thing going to happen. So what we're seeing within our stores, Nick, at the moment, is that people are still shopping often, but the basket spends in value might be higher, but the volume is actually back. And that's coming through on terms of the higher cost of products to put into that basket. We're seeing shoppers a little bit more promiscuous, so they will shop across different brands more often. And they're also very happy to buy private label, because they see those products are the same quality as the big brands, but at much more affordable prices. So I think, families have changed in terms of how they shop, how they value the importance of quality, but they're much more savvy than ever before. And as I said earlier, when you've got this little phone in your hand, you can chat prices before you decide where you want to actually walk or drive or go and buy your products. So you've got all of this information all in one place, and it's instant, it's real time. So that's a big dynamic. That's a big change in terms of how consumers are shopping. And I see it even with my own daughter, who has sadly moved out of our family home, but she's very savvy. She likes to buy local produce. She knows where she gets the best deal on those products, but also she'll shop where it's convenient. And she likes to shop where the experience is good, but also where the technology can remove some of that inconvenience from the convenience sector in which we're in.
I'm just picking up then on that point around technology, because I think that's such a critical aspect of everything in people's lives today, and particularly in business. And it's a bit of a catch-all phrase when you say technology, but I kind of think there's those fundamental technologies that have been around for a while and have developed and underpin the critical business functions within running your organization. And then there's a whole range of new technologies coming online all of the time. There's the whole piece around AI and so on. And I guess, how do you filter through all of that and make decisions around what technology is right for your company, what makes sense, what are you testing, and how do you get that right and approach it?
Yeah, look, I think it's a great question. One of the first things I did 10 years ago was try to elevate the importance of technology in our business. And so we created a chief information officer position within the group, because you're only as good as the information that you have to hand in terms of making the right decisions with the right information at the right time. And I think with technology, there is such a vast array out there. There is a vast range of vendors, suppliers, but you soon get to know the vendors and suppliers who are very much in tune with the type of business, the kind of sector that we're in. Like ours is very, very, to be quite honest, the typical time a customer will spend with us is probably no more 3 to 4 minutes. So it's all about speed of service, but also it's making sure that you have the right goods at the right place at the right time. And technology has changed quite dramatically. All of our fuel pricing within a company-owned sites is done through AI. And it's machine learning, it's developed, it's trained itself. It's how do we make that slick? And we can change the price on our phone. We can do it remotely from head office. And we can introduce dynamic pricing. We can do all of that. Whereas when you think 10 years ago, Nick, that would have been very, very difficult to do that. So technology there. And again, through the community, the global community, we go off and we see where that technology is way ahead from what we would have seen in Ireland. So we go and we talk to those companies and we see firsthand the value, the benefits. I can recall, I think with Dan or yourself, going to Hong Kong, meeting Circle K, where they were a big advocate in terms of artificial intelligence, in terms of how they use that within their pricing dynamic tool.
And that was quite a while ago. I think that was in the mid-2010s or something. It's amazing your point about how quickly that technology changes when you talk about the fuel pricing and what you're doing in that space now versus 10 years ago, and how that's kind of moved on and advanced.
But that's only such a small part of our business, that, that's our front of house in terms of the canopy, what's under canopy. But in terms of payments technology has changed dramatically, largely driven by COVID. Who would have thought contactless payments would be 70, 80% now of all of your transactions? We introduced NIAX contactless payments to all of our drive-through car washes, and that stimulated a double-digit percentage increase in sales and revenue, because people seen it as a way of removing that inconvenience of having to get out of your car to go into the shop, to buy a receipt, to get a PIN number, to walk back out again, where you can just walk up and tap and go. And it also means you can extend, subject to your planning permission, your opening hours for that particular mission in terms of drive-through car washing. So payments technology has been phenomenal in that side. Also OPTs. We would have been one of the first, retailers within our sector to make sure that we always had 2 islands with outdoor payment terminals, because we saw those customers who wanted just to fuel and go. It was all about speed of service. It was about reliability. They didn't want to have to go in and queue waiting for people who were in front, with baskets of groceries, or who are wishing to buy a coffee or convenience. We've seen that as a completely different mission. So there's so many different aspects in terms of technology. Like we use self-checkouts in Northern Ireland. We don't use them to the same extent in the south of Ireland because the customer and the type of spend is quite different. But all of our developments now in Northern Ireland, we'll be putting in self-checkouts, speed of service, and also at a time when wages are growing and continuing to increase and there's a very tight labor pool. How do you continue to provide that level of service and experience? Self-checkouts, customers are much, much more accustomed to it now. They expect that. And if you don't provide it, you're only creating an advert for your closest competitor.
It's taking the inconvenience out of convenience, I think is what you said before.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brad, if I can turn over to you, because I know you've been listening well over here, and I know you've been in the industry or around at least customer-facing industries for quite some time, most if not all of your professional life. So, how have you seen this evolution of customer journey change? And in the same sense, has technology made it easier? Obviously, yes. The answer is yes. That's an easy given one. But how has technology really bridged that gap, on both sides, from the customer and the retailer?
Sure. I mean, there's plenty of thoughts to go down here. I think if you tie into the idea of how the customer experience has evolved, our mission used to be very functional. Going to C-stores, we used to go there to fuel up, where it's evolved over the last 15 years as the customer experience has become more important because new missions have been introduced. Takeaway coffee, sticking on that one, for instance, was kind of started to take shape in around 2010. So people started to make decisions around where they're going to fuel depending on the presence of coffee. That evolved into the preference of coffee. And, it used to be in the UK a battle of Costa versus Starbucks, but it evolved again. And Brian's point around delivering high quality coffee, and you can become credible for that brand by delivering a good product. And even if it's one that's been produced by Maxol, Rosa Coffee, as long as it has that quality there and it's dependency that it's going to be delivered every time, that's going to start to drive improvements in customer experience and that loyalty of that customer coming back. And coffee machines are very expensive pieces of equipment, and they typically break down far too often for how much we spend on them. So it's very important that technology is there with ways to ensure that if it does break down, it's going to be resolved as quickly as possible. And there is an alternative available, another coffee machine, so that that customer can get a good drink and leave with a good feeling, even if one of them wasn't dispensing in the right way. And that's hugely important.
Well, Brad, that's an interesting point. And, I think when you talk about technology, you often think of those technologies that customers interact with, be that a loyalty app or those kind of things. And I think fundamentally all technology within retail really is, customer centric, even if it's not directly touching the customer experience. In the background, it's enabling the customer experience. And I think that's what you guys at Urgent really do. And I know you work with the Maxol organization, and I think to Brian's point, you're one of those companies within this ecosystem of the global convenience industry who really understand this industry and work closely with retailers. But Urgent in terms of a technology, it's one of those fundamental technologies that actually enable the overall operation to ensure a smooth customer experience. Is that kind of your view of it?
Very much so. And I think society has probably been very forgiving over the years that if you've got a site with 32 fuel pumps and one of those fuel pumps isn't working, they'll probably let you off and they'll return. But as we're going through a high period of change, especially with the energy transition, where you've had 32 fuel pumps, but you might only have 6 EV chargers. If one of those EV chargers isn't working, that driver probably isn't going to come back because you've likely impacted their ability to get to their destination. So having technology that can resolve issues as quickly as possible ensures you can maintain that customer experience and keep that loyalty through the energy transition, because it's a tough time for forecourt operators now that people are choosing to switch to EV because they realize they can save money by charging at home. So it's made it very hard for operators to maintain a reason to come to their sites. And Maxol's done a very good job of that with their their food convenience offer, their coffee offer, the other services that they got available. So it's really important that customer service is delivered well.
Yeah, for sure. And Brian, do you want to comment on anything you said?
Yeah, look, we work closely with with Urgent and Brad and his team, and it's all about making sure that we have uptime right across all of our fixtures, right across the estate. But also, it's a fantastic tool from the point of view, like we have our asset register. Every piece of kit obviously is coded, so we know when we installed it. We can understand its reliability. We can understand when we have to maintain, when we replace certain parts. So it becomes a much more proactive rather than a reactive type of approach to how we manage our estate. And it is an estate that continues to grow. So therefore, we need to have that confidence, and we need to have the tools in which we can still manage our operating overhead costs in the most efficient and the most cost-effective way. And I know Frank Melia, who heads up all of our maintenance across the group, has found it to be an invaluable tool in terms of giving him time back, but also being able to focus on the exceptions. One thing in life, I think it's very important, when you are looking at your network and you're benchmarking it against your KPIs, what you really want to look at is what's the outliers? What are the 5 or 10 problem locations that we have? This kind of technology and reporting capability enables us to be much more decisive and to spend our time much more wisely, because it shows you that exceptions report, and that's invaluable. Particularly when you're running a business and we are continuing to acquire more assets, more properties, but we really don't want to increase more people to manage all of that. We're still trying, to do it within the resources that we have, and that's where technology comes back in. And one of the things which I think is very important is don't invest in technology for the sake of investing in technology. Find out what your problem is or where you think the opportunities are, and then try to find the right technology that's going to enable you, because it is an enabler, to get there, to do the job better, to save operating costs or to drive more efficiency or to improve your uptime and the service levels, which ultimately comes back to that earlier point. It's all about the experience. So, it's a closed circle in terms of the role of technology and how you use that within your business.
And Brian, maybe just as we're kind of coming to the end and wrapping up on from a time point of view, I just, coming back to that customer experience point of view, and we were talking about the EV side of things. I was having a call last week with Nikki from Maxol, your head of marketing, and we were talking about EVs and the best EV hub in the world competition, and congratulations and thank you for being part of that again and making the top 10. And I was just saying to, in terms of, and we were talking specifically about Newbridge, which is your entry in the competition, but how impressive that site is, and not just that site, but the whole sub-brand of Maxol Recharge that you've created, and the whole customer experience around on-the-go EV charging that you've put into your sites within Ireland. And it's a challenging transition for sure, make no mistake about it. But I think the way in which you guys have branded that, thought about the customer experience, the canopy, the communication piece of it, engaging EV customers, it kind of goes to the heart of everything that I think Maxol represents to our industry. Is it's about the customer. You guys understand that customer experience element of it, from technology through to coffee, through now to the EV experience. And I think all of that really is testament to why you've been recognized as NACS Convenience Industry Leader of the Year.
Yeah, look, the EV transition has certainly been much slower than I think any of us ever thought it would be. And, when we talk about Maxol Recharge and the investments that we have made, which we started recently in Hollywood and Kinnicker in Northern Ireland, would have been our first innovation center. And then we did one in Ballymena, we did another one in Newbridge, which we have now put in again for the global EV Hub Awards. But, we do try to see this through the eyes of the user. And even in terms of what we have been developing today, we think there are improvements that we can make to the next Maxol Recharge EV Hub. Again, by just listening and talking to our customers. And the first thing that we didn't want to do was to discriminate against our EV customers. That's why we built a canopy. That's why we only try to design them with wider parking bays, because there are people who are disabled, there are people who are old, who need to open their doors wide to be able to get in and out of the cars. And also, like when we were talking to our customers, their view was safety. Lighting of EV hubs is absolutely critical because you're actually connected to a charger through a very heavy cable and people live vulnerable. So that's why security, that's why lighting is so important. And that's why we would never develop a standalone charging hub on its own. There's no point having an EV oasis out in the desert, because the other thing our customers are telling us, well, look, we don't want to sit in our car. We want to come in, get a coffee, maybe get something in food service, or maybe we want to do some top-up shopping. And it's quite interesting, the conversion rates from people charging to in-store is particularly high. It's particularly lucrative. The big challenge at the moment, Nick and Caroline, quite simply, is there isn't enough EVs in Ireland at the moment to justify the very heavy investment. There's about 150,000 battery electric vehicles in the Republic of Ireland out of a fleet of 2.8 million. So it's less than 4%. Yeah. And in Northern Ireland, probably no more than 40,000 battery electric vehicles out of a car pool of over 1 million. So it's a chicken and egg. And, as a family business, every investment has to stack up. And certainly we will continue to invest because we think that's the right thing to do. But we also think that there are other energies that are coming through. And we see ourselves not only as, trying to be a food convenience-led business, but we also see multi-energies being part of that as well. And that's why the typical footprint today of what you see inside of roadside retail perhaps may not be big enough, because there may well be 100% renewable fuels, second generation biofuels there. There might be EV charging hubs. There may be hydrogen fueling facilities for some of the heavier transportation. And who knows what else might come down the line as well. So you're always sort of planning for the future. But one of the things that we've tried to do within our business is identify the right locations, because retail is all about location, and make sure that you have enough space in which you can develop out at the right time to meet the needs of the customer base, which continues to evolve and change every day.
Brian, I don't think I could have even closed that out even better with that. So I think that some of the things that I took away from this discussion from all of us is just the acceleration of life and how it really sped up everything. And then kind of now we're still just trying to figure it out a little bit, whether it's people, EVs, fuel, all those things, phones, tariffs, whatever can get in the way. And I think the one thing you said at one point was, if it's not one thing, it's the next thing. And 100%, whatever this thing is, and we talked about it being the customer journey, it's the next thing. And I look forward to talking to all of you again, and we'll talk about that next thing. Thank you so much for your time, Brian. Brad, it was fantastic to talk with you as well, hearing your journey and talking a little bit more about how this all impacts technology to customer experience and how we can all make it work together. And Nick, always a pleasure.
Thanks, Carolyn. Brian, Brad, thank you.
Thank you very much, Nick. Thanks, Caroline. Brad, nice to meet you again. Thank you.
And thank you so much for listening to The Future of Convenience. You've been listening to The Future of Convenience podcast, produced by Dan Munford, Nick Scherzer, Jenna Ferguson, and Lorraine Evans. It is produced, edited, and mixed by Carolyn Schnare, and music is provided by Jukebox Music. Learn more at globalconveniencestorefocus.co.uk.